Hey everyone, it's Sarah. I did a video somewhat recently, a Bob's Burgers style burger video where I made a burger with jalapeno poppers, and I asked people if they wanted me to show how to make jalapeno poppers from scratch, and people said yes. So here is me making jalapeno poppers from scratch. So first off, credit where credit's due. I'm using a recipe from allrecipes.com. They are a recipe blog that I tend to rely on them. Chef John from Food Wishes posts a lot of his stuff there. So anyway, I've got 16 jalapenos here. They are of varying sizes. It really doesn't matter, I don't think. I mean, if you care that they're all the same size, make them all the same size, but they actually kind of cook up at the same speed anyway, regardless of size. So I just get whatever I want. It's nice to have smaller ones and bigger ones in the mix. And you're also going to need cream cheese. The recipe calls for 1.5 of these containers, 12 ounces total, but I hate recipes that leave you with like half of a thing left over, so I'm just going to make the recipe a little bit bigger and use both of these. You're also going to need some breadcrumbs, and you're also going to need a kitten. Hello, Yvain. Nika. Oh, that's a microphone. Don't attack that. And you're also going to need some bacon bits. I like to go ahead and fry mine off. This is 4 pieces of bacon. It's going to cook down quite a bit. We need like 1/4 cup of bacon bits total. If there's extra, who cares? It's delicious. What did you say? What? You also need cheddar cheese grated, but I'm not going to take that out of the fridge yet because it'll just get warm. So believe it or not, jalapeno poppers are not the whole jalapeno. It's actually half of the jalapeno. So your first step, leave the stem part intact, and you want to cut the jalapeno in half, hot dog style, we would say in the US. And then you want to scrape out this white pith and seeds. This is where all the heat is anyway, so if you're one of those people who doesn't do spice very well, jalapeno poppers are actually not that spicy. So I'm gonna have my husband do this off camera. Actually, I'll do one on camera just to show you how it's done, but I mean, you can get the pith out any way you like, but a spoon usually works pretty decently. And you know, once you have scraped out the seeds and the pith, make sure you wash your hands very, very thoroughly with soap and water. Yeah, you only have to make that mistake once, and then you never make it again. Nika, Mommy is cooking with very spicy things.
But she was going for the wire.
Yeah, but now she's attacking a jalapeno seed. That's not a good toy, honey. Okay, the bacon bits are about done. I've put the cream cheese in here. Ideally it's softened, and as is always the case, one always forgets to take out the cream cheese in advance and soften it properly, so it's still a bit cold. I'm just gonna add these hot bacon bits directly into the cream cheese, and that will help soften it a little bit. You don't want bacon fat in there, just the bacon bits. And if you don't save that bacon grease and use it in other dishes, we cannot be friends. Okay, tripod, be a tripod and hold this camera without falling all over the place. Okay. I often will give up and just use my hands to mix this, but we'll see. So I'm like consulting my recipe right now as I'm making this, and believe it or not, there's no spices in here. Like, you could add stuff if you want. I think I usually add black pepper. I'm gonna go ahead and do that right now. It feels like the right thing to do. Surely you could also add things like garlic powder or any other seasonings that you like, but you don't have to add salt to this mixture because bacon has salt. I think cream cheese even has salt, but also cheddar cheese, another ingredient that we're going to add, has salt. And lo and behold, the bacon did soften up this cream cheese a little bit. I am a genius. Sorry if my voice sounds weird right now. I am allergic to raw peppers, and my husband cut up all the jalapenos, which was great. But the raw jalapeno oil and stuff is floating around in the air, and I've been inhaling it, and we've both been coughing an awful lot, and my throat's all swelled up right now. I also had my wisdom teeth extracted a 1.5 weeks ago, and still not fully recovered from that yet. If you wanted to make this taste even smokier, or if you wanted to leave out the bacon for some weird reason, you could also add smoked paprika. I believe somebody in my comments section said that I should add pickle juice to this, that it was a revelation. don't think I will though at the moment, because I don't feel like pulling the giant jar of pickles out of the fridge and getting pickle juice out. Very simple reason. Okay, so the recipe calls for 8 ounces of grated cheddar cheese. As I mentioned earlier, I'm making a bigger version of the recipe. And also, I took the cheese out of its plastic long ago, so I don't know how many ounces of cheese I had left. I just had a big block. So I just grated some, and this looks about right. And so I'm gonna mix it in. If you're one of those weird people who likes to measure things when they cook, it's supposed to be 8 ounces of cheese. And with this increased version I'm doing, it would be more like probably 10 ounces. Basically, you want some cheddar cheese in there for flavor and salt and gooiness and cohesion. It'll help keep everything together. And yeah, like I said, this kind of works better if you mix it with your hands, but this is actually, I'm doing an okay job with a spoon. And you want this mixture to be, well, homogenized, you know, nicely stirred, but also rather compact. You don't want it to be all like light and fluffy or anything, so I would not bother whipping out a stand mixer or any fancy equipment to mix this. I don't have one of those anyway. Okay, the other things you're gonna need for these are milk, just plain old milk, and some breadcrumbs. Italian breadcrumbs are nice, like seasoned breadcrumbs. These are actually a stuffing mix from Thanksgiving that I had left over. I just ground it into breadcrumbs, and bam, it's seasoned breadcrumbs. And here are all the jalapenos that my husband halved. Okay, I have all these jalapeno halves laid out on a cookie sheet because it makes the whole process a lot easier. I also have not a very clean breading station because my kitchen is small. And my poor camera does not want to focus there. Sorry, I have to zoom in, otherwise it won't focus. Anyway, I've got breadcrumbs, I have milk, I have the cheese filling mixture, and I also just have plain flour. So what you gotta do is take a half of a jalapeno and fill it as best you can with the cream filling. And you really want to push it down in there, like, you have to use your hands. There's just no getting around it. If you're one of those people who doesn't like using their hands when cooking, have somebody else do this part. So it's fine if it bumps up a little bit. In fact, since I made a little bit of extra filling, maybe I will fill these a little bit extra. And like I said, these are not closed. You don't like put the other half of the jalapeno and close it. That would make these things way too big. Believe it or not, this will hold. The filling will not ooze out. To make it not ooze out, I dare not move my camera because this tripod is so rickety. Anyway, I dip the whole thing in milk, just like that. And then I dip that whole thing in flour. And ideally, you have the one dirty hand, one clean hand situation, but it's really hard to do this with a camera and a tripod, especially a rickety tripod that falls a bunch. Anyway, you coat it in flour once, and this is what it looks like. And it's not perfectly coated, but that's okay, because it's gonna get a second coat later. So once it gets its first coating, you just put it down, and then do the rest of them. I will do one more on camera to show you what it looks like. But for the rest of these, I'm turning the camera off because it is really precarious what I'm doing right now. I am terrified that I'm gonna knock over the camera into these jalapenos and then break the camera further. Anyway, so fill it, really press it down, get it into the nooks and crannies. Doo-doo. And see, cream cheese is great. It's like spackle. It holds everything in there. Into the milk. Whee! And then into the flour. And this is just plain flour. It's not even seasoned. Like, I suppose you could season it, but you really don't have to. The breadcrumbs are seasoned, and the filling is hyper flavorful. And just bloop, right down. Okay, I'm gonna do all the rest of this off camera and see you later. How do I turn it off with my floury hands? Okay, they are all covered in flour, and I've washed the claw of flour off of my hands. So the next step is to do what we just did, but with breadcrumbs instead of flour. So this first step, this first dip, all it did really was it added some glue to these, because otherwise nothing will stick to this very smooth peppery side of the popper. The cheese side, things will stick to that because it's nice and spackly and moist, but the pepper side needed some help. So that first coating was sort of glue to help these next breadcrumb coatings stick. Okay, so I'm going to show two on camera with my cameraman helping if the kitten will vacate the shoulders. Hello, Yvonne. Hi, sweetheart. Can you please move? Sorry.
She waited for me to walk by and jumped on up.
Okay, so I got my milk, I got my breadcrumbs. And we're gonna do this twice, by the way. This is just the first pass. So back in the milk, and you might think, oh no, some of the coating is coming off. Like, yeah, it does that. That's kind of by design. Yay, since I have a camera person, I can do the wet hand, dry hand thing that I'm supposed to do. Okay, I might actually need more breadcrumbs than this, but that's okay, because I have more. And there you have it, one completely coated one. And if you only did the one coating, this filling would kind of ooze out while frying, so it is really important to double coat. So put that down and do another. And you have to let this coating sit for 10 minutes before applying the second coating, but by the time I get through all of these, the first ones will have been sitting for 10 minutes. So, dang it, I used the dry hand in the wet. That always happens. Hashtag relatable. Anyway, also I didn't show this very well in the last pass because I was trying to operate a camera, but you want to tap off any extra breadcrumbs, any extra flour while you're doing this process. And yeah, this is why you want to have a wet hand and a dry hand, so this doesn't happen. Anyway, I'm gonna do the rest of this off camera and then I'll come back. Okay, this is after dredge number 1, and I'm gonna do dredge number 2. Look how beautiful the milk is. And I'm gonna use up all of our breadcrumbs probably, which is great, because as I mentioned in an older video, we're moving soon and want to use up everything in our pantry. So the second dip, you don't actually have to be as careful as the first dip, especially if you did a good job with the first dip. There you go, complete. I'm gonna do one more. And then what I like to do while I dredge these, as you can see, I'm making 32 jalapeno poppers. Now, if it were up to him, I would just make all of them and we would eat all of them. But I'm going to freeze half of them for later. And this is the stage at which you would just freeze them. So what I'm gonna do is I'm gonna be putting half of them on this clean sheet. These are the 2 that I just did. And I'm gonna pop these directly into the freezer and freeze them like this, open for about a half hour, and then put them in a Ziploc bag and keep them in the freezer for a month or 2. And then you fry them directly from frozen, just like you would fresh. So it's really nice. And now to bread the rest of these. Okay, I've got my oil heating up. You want this actually at a pretty high temperature because all you really need to do is cook this bread coating and soften up the jalapeno a little bit. You don't want to have these too long in the oil because then the cheese is just going to ooze out of the breadcrumbs. I always deep fry multiple things at once because it's such a big production. So these are some chicken tendies that I'm also making. I've locked the kittens away in a room so they can't get into mischief. Donica in particular likes jumping up on the counter sometimes, and I do not want her anywhere near hot oil. Anyway, this is half the ones I've breaded. The other half is sitting up here in my crowded freezer. And yeah, you might think, oh, you should use less oil because then it's less wasteful or whatever. But the less oil you use, the colder the oil gets when you put your food in there. It's about 190 now. You want it to be like 350, 375. If you don't use very much oil, it's going to get way too cold when we put these in. So I actually use more oil, and then I just recycle my fry oil. You can use it again and again a few more times if you strain it. So I'm just waiting for it to come up to temperature. Once it does come up to temperature and I actually start frying these, I'm going to fry them a few at a time, and then I'm going to put them on paper towels right there. But I can't do that yet because my kitchen is too small. So we'll come back later. There, situation remedied. I put the tendies next to the sink. Ooh, we are so close. 350. Okay, I'm gonna start frying. God, who was I watching recently that said oil can sense fear? I think it was Kenji. He said you have to get your fingers really close to the oil when you're putting things in there. That way it won't splash at you. That's true. So these go very quickly, just about, 2 to 3 minutes. Look at that, it's already getting brown. I like to pick them up as they're frying, just to make sure they're not sticking together, to make sure they're not oozing out all over the place. and to see how beautifully they are crisping up. And if we did our job correctly, this is always a sort of praying moment, our filling will not leak out too much. Basically, that's how I tell when it is done, is when the filling like starts to kind of peek out a little bit, starts to think about leaking out. If you can, try to keep these stuffing side facing up in the oil. That will give them a better chance of success. Sometimes it's hard to tell once they're frying. It's kind of hard to tell which way is up. But I can see on this one, I can see the green peeking out there. So I know, okay, I should try to keep that side of it downward and the other side of it upward. Well, according to my camera, it's been a couple minutes. Oh, see, you can maybe see that this cheese is starting to ooze a little bit. Also, you can lift it out and just give it a little break. It helps things settle a little bit, and then put it back in the oil. You know, I probably could have put more poppers in here at once since I have so much oil. We're starting to ooze a little bit. The breading is beautifully crisp. I just want to make sure that the jalapeno is cooked a little bit. It'll be a bit toothsome. There will be a little bit of a bite to it. But, you know, you don't want it to be raw. And some of these are very big jalapenos, so they do take a little longer. I know I said earlier they all kind of cook at the same rate. That's not quite true. Like, the smaller ones do tend to cook faster. But it's an intensive enough process that you just kind of watch them and take them out as they're ready. I like to let them go as long as they can, though, just to make sure they get really crispy, really golden, and the filling gets nice and melted and oozy, and the pepper gets nice and cooked. So I play jalapeno popper chicken, and I just see how long I can keep them in there without them bursting open too much. I did not know the beauty of jalapeno poppers until about, I don't know, 8 years ago. And now I can't get enough of them. They are amazing.
What are jalapeno poppers?
They're deep-fried jalapenos filled with cheese. One time at a Buffalo Wild Wings in Jacksonville, I ate 50 of them in 2 minutes.
Perfect junk food. Okay. I think it's time to take you boys out. And again, try to make it filling side up when you put it on the paper towel. I learned somewhat recently, I believe from binging with Babish of all people, that it's actually best to just put things directly on paper towel when you're deep frying, to not bother with wire racks. It actually makes it crisper that way. So that is what I'm doing. Look how beautiful they are. Ah, I love them so much. I can't wait to eat them. Okay, let's fry some more. The oil senses my fear. 4, 1, 2, 3. I did 5 last time. That's probably a good enough number. 5, 5, and 6. Okay, while this next batch finishes frying, I'm gonna open up this one so you can see what it's like on the inside. I'm gonna open it with my mouth. Oh, that is so delicious and so satisfying after eating soft foods for a week and then semi-soft foods for a few days. This is just beautiful. It's so caloric, it's so bad for you, but it's so tasty. Oh, we are starting to ooze. I can't believe that, like, just 10 years ago, I was too scared to deep fry, and now I deep fry, like, all the time. Oh, also note that I am dropping the popper away from me. That's another important thing when you're deep frying. It's also a good idea to check your oil periodically to make sure it's the right temperature. Mine looks like it's super high, but it's actually not. It's still within the acceptable range. You want it between like 325 and I said 375 earlier, but I don't know, that might be a little bit too high actually. It's like if it starts out at 375, that's good because it'll lower itself to between 325 and 350 while you're cooking the poppers, which is what you want. But you don't want it to be like at 375 while your poppers are frying, because then they'll burn and your pepper won't cook. Well, anyway, I'm going to say goodbye here because I have a bunch of tendies to fry after this.